So, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brain Power with Dr. Echo. I have an amazing guest with me today. She's the CEO of Autism Research Institute, Denise Fulton. Welcome to the show, Miss Fulton.
Hi there. Glad to be here.
Yes. So I'm gonna have her introduce herself because she's simply amazing, and she's done so much work in the field of autism research and just helping our parents and our children, right, live better lives. And even beyond that, she's mommy of Grant, but I'll let her tell you all about it. So tell our listeners about you, Denise, please.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Echo. I'm Denise Fulton. I am the COO of the Autism Research Institute. I've been working there for about 20 years, which is amazing to me. I had a job, I worked in technology. And when my son was diagnosed in 2003, I stopped doing all of those things and really threw myself into helping our son Grant. And so as part of that journey, I ended up connecting with Steve Edelson and the great leaders at Autism Research Institute and ended up being hired and working here. I worked on the conferences with some really amazing people. And then as time went on, everything moved online. And so I've been working on ARI's continuing education and webinar programs for many years. I also help with ARI's think tanks, and I help support all of the different programs that they do online, along with the great people I work with, like Dr. Edelson and our team. And I'm really fortunate to do this work to honor other families and to walk with them as I walk with my own son.
Wonderful. Isn't that amazing how life just puts things in your path, right?
Yeah. I definitely was, when I was in school, this was not where I imagined I'd be, but I'm really grateful to be here.
Yes, wonderful. So tell us, so you mentioned your son Grant. So there are parents listening who feel they may be different parts of their journey, right? Some of them are still not sure if they should pursue an evaluation. Some have gotten evaluated. Can you just tell us what the journey was like for you? And I know every child is different, but would like to hear how that was for you.
Sure. Grant was one of the kids who, from a very young age, had clear medical issues. He had gastrointestinal issues that were quite significant, that could not be ignored. And he had rashes all over his body. He had mystery fevers. I mean, he was 9 to 18 months old and just really sick all the time. He wasn't speaking. He was very perseverative, would walk back and forth by bike racks once he started walking, and just sort of, stim on those, just that sort of thing. Just no two-way communication. And so we knew by a year that things were developing differently. And by 18 months, he was already referred for an early intervention and has started. But we knew that there were medical issues. He was having these issues. He could not sleep. And so we went to different physicians, and they were very kind, but most of them really didn't see it as, they just said a lot of autistic kids are like that. So we started doing our own research, as many families do, and especially in that time did, and realized that there were probably things that could be done with appropriate medical care. And so we did travel. We traveled over state lines. We traveled through time zones. I don't want to make it sound like we had a ton of resources, but we just managed to do that, usually by car. And we did find a physician who was very knowledgeable about nutrition and different co-occurring conditions. And once Grant received proper evaluation and started on a better nutritional plan and was really getting the care that he needed, he improved a lot. He improved quite a bit. Grant is 23, he's turning 24 this year. And he graduated from college last year. He got his degree. And that was very different from his initial prognosis. I mean, we had him diagnosed every year at the university here where we live. And it's very conclusive that he had a full syndrome diagnosis of autism. At that time, that's how they diagnosed it. And that he has made unusual progress. And just really fortunate that we found the right people, and that he was one of those people who could improve, who had those conditions that once addressed, his development was able to continue.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd like to go a little deeper into the co-occurring conditions, right? Because I'm sure there are parents listening and think, wait a second, my kid has lots of rashes too. And are you saying that this has something to do with nutrition? I mean, I say it all the time, but I'd like you to say it's different coming from a parent, right? And just sharing like what you found in your journey and even working with I'm sure you've come across lots of families and seen all the research come to life. So just walk us through a little bit more detail about how the conditions and the outcomes. Yeah.
Sure. So Grant clearly had he had diarrhea 6 to 8 times a day. He had fevers for no reason. They would just come out of nowhere. He'd have a fever and there didn't seem to be a reason for it. He ended up his skin was so inflamed he couldn't sit in the bathtub. So he had to stand in the tub, and then he ended up having infections in his genitals and different things because he just was so uncomfortable and he couldn't sleep. And I mean, we just were exhausted as parents. And I read a book. It was a book at that time that everybody was reading about using a gluten-free, casein-free diet. That was at that time, sort of the cutting edge. And, I read it and I said, well, there's nothing wrong. He's just going to eat whole foods. We're going to feed him whole foods. And so we cleaned out the cupboards. We'd been these totally organic older parents already. So it wasn't that big a deal to us to change his nutrition. And so, yeah, he started eating whole foods. He was eating real food, meat, fruits and vegetables. We did cut out gluten. We cut out dairy. We were juicing with tea. So we were using mint tea with some juice, kind of watered down, and using that because he would drink that. He didn't like to drink water, but we could get him to drink that. And he was almost 2 when we started the diet, and he had not been communicating at all. And he did start speaking within about 4 to 5 weeks. I mean, by his second birthday, he did say a couple of words. Now, I don't want to make it sound like he was speaking in sentences or, giving speeches, but it was the first time he had done that. And so we were using sign language with him. And as he started to, the rashes went away, the diarrhea went away, he started to sleep. Then we started to see him being able to communicate. We started to see that. And this was a long process. This is 6 to 9 months. So this was just over the course of the next year. A lot of that communication at that time was very perseverative and redundant, but we were just happy to be closing some circles of communication, getting them to interact, and getting some kind of basis to work with for all of his therapy and different interventions we were doing through the school district and different resources. But the key thing for Grant was very much nutrition for him. And I would never say that's true for every family. I can't say that's true for every family as a parent, but I can say that for a child who was that sick, it made a very big difference. And he couldn't tell us he felt sick, but now as an adult, he remembers feeling sick. He can articulate about feeling that way, about being nauseous until he was 4, feeling sick to his stomach. So I think, sometimes we have to be detectives and try to help our kids just based on what we can see.
Yes, absolutely. You've said so many things. One big one I want to point out is that it took time, right? And I always have this conversation with my parents. It takes time, right? There is no magic bullet. It's gonna take time to reverse itself. And did this happen to Grant? Did you ever notice a time where it seemed like he was regressing and then came back and then moved forward? Did that ever happen with him?
It was 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. I will say he was on special diets until he was 11. I mean, it went on, and he still is pretty careful about how he eats. But he did that gluten-free, casein-free diet, and he did start to make that progress with pragmatic communication, but he still had some of those symptoms, like gastrointestinal problems. And we worked with clinicians. I want to make this really clear. We worked with licensed medical professionals to proceed through this. We did not try to do it by ourselves. Sometimes insurance limited what our choices were, but we did everything we could. Like we did our best, and then did our own research as well, and tried to educate our nutritionists and other people if we had to, just so that we did at least have partnerships. So we weren't doing it by ourselves. But yeah, we did gluten-free and casein-free for a long time. And then later we did switch to a different diet called the specific carbohydrate diet. And we used that for 5 years. And that was a very restrictive diet. But it was a way of life. Once we started doing it, we stopped thinking about it. I would say it's so much easier to do when they're young, before they're 13 and have really strong opinions about food. It does get much more challenging as kids get older. But it was doable. And once we had accepted it and did it, but we knew we had to sustain it. We could see if he started eating, if he was cheating, kind of. I hate to use that word because it's not really, but we could tell he'd start to have gastrointestinal symptoms, and then that would impact his sleep and other things. And then his behavior would be different. And we could tell if he was eating something at school he probably should avoid. So.
Right. No, it's so wonderful. I love how you've just identified the arc, right? The cycle. What he eats, you can tell. Next thing, sleep is off, then behavior is off, because everything is controlled by in the body, right? Same brain, same gut. So important for those of you listening, right? And thank you again for taking a deeper dive into his symptoms. So what will you tell the parents who's listening and saying, my goodness, I don't even know where to start?
It's a great question. On ARI's website, we have, I'll say this, Autism Research Institute, we used to have live conferences and that sort of thing, but we really decided in a very purposeful way about, gosh, it's 14 years ago now, that information that's highly evidence-based by very qualified presenters should be free. It should be free to parents and to providers and to everybody else. So on our website, we do have absolutely for free webinars, and many of them do address these co-occurring conditions, and some of them also address nutrition. We also have some upcoming talks on that. So, people can register for free on the site. If you can't make it live that day, it's completely fine. We put them up within 4 to 6 hours so that people can watch them. We don't want people to have anxiety if they can't be there during the webinar. It's what I wish I could have had. I felt like there was nothing free when my son was experiencing this, and we really wanted it to be free. There were a couple, I should give credit where it's due though. There were a couple of organizations that were publishing some of this information for free, who I think shared that same ethic that parents shouldn't have to pay to get lists of what gluten-free food are. And those definitely helped me. ARI was one of them. There were a couple of other organizations as well that really were committed to that and continue to be. So I'd encourage parents that way too. Just always be careful about who you're listening to. You really want to make sure that it's somebody who's highly qualified, somebody who really has your patient's best interest in mind. I think most people really do, but you want to always think, who is this person? What's their background, and be mindful about that.
Yes. So true. So you mentioned, I have a question. You mentioned that Grant was on a special diet until 11. So what happened after age 11?
Well, they go to middle school. And it got much trickier. Yes. But I would say this. I mean, we could tell that it was impacting his sleep, but it just, at that point, for Grant, and I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but we could communicate with him in a meaningful way where we could talk to him about it, and he could just tell us, this is what happened. And we also got to the point where we felt like, there was as much cost for him being in a constant power struggle with us about a diet that we just got to this point where we felt like he needed to make a decision about it being meaningful to him and helpful to him. Yeah. So otherwise it was just, we were going to be the state patrol for the rest of our life. Right. and that's hard to mediate, but certainly when he was younger, it was very manageable. And I found other parents, grandparents, as long as we didn't emphasize it, they were fine with it. Like, most people are very supportive. They didn't seem to have a problem with it. Now, I think different families have different cultures around that. Right. But I think, it is hard as parents. We have to advocate for our kids so much. And this is yet another thing that you have to do or might consider doing. But I will say, for the kids who benefit from it, like Grant did, I don't regret doing that. It was worth helping him have better health so he could sleep and have better time.
Yes. And so Grant improved. How did your sleep improve?
Yeah, we didn't sleep those first 2 years. I mean, it was tremendously stressful. And I mean, once he started sleeping, obviously we started sleeping better, and we were much more able to be impactful parents and not be panicked all the time. I mean, I think we had been so panicked, but he was our only child at that time. He was our first.
Mhm.
So, yeah, once he was sleeping better, we were much more capable and able to feel balanced and able to navigate a diet. I mean, a diet takes executive planning. You've got to make, and it's easier these days because we have these different shopping tools and you can do it online, and that can be really helpful. And that didn't exist then. Um, but you still have to, it's a mindful thing, and it's every day, and it's tricky. So yeah, I think sleeping better as a family, and I was gluten free and dairy free during that time too. I wouldn't say I ever went completely SCD, but I was definitely very much walking with him on that diet.
Yes, and that's an important point I was hoping you would say, because I was going to ask you next. Did your family also do the same thing? Because it definitely helps if the family does it together. So we're not pointing fingers at the kid and say, "Don't eat that," while
Right.
we eat it, and it's like that's definitely not helpful.
I mean, mostly because it was just easier, right? You're just gonna cook, and the other thing, there's so much good food that is just, if you're just eating whole foods, it can happen pretty naturally anyway.
Yeah.
It really can. It wasn't that hard in that way. I mean, obviously, if my husband was out for lunch with friends, it didn't matter if he went and ate whatever he wanted. But yeah, in front of Grant, we modeled that this is just what we eat, and then he wasn't. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think he was aware of Hostess products or any of those things until he was about 6. I don't think he knew till he went to school really that
Right.
those things were out there. So he didn't know that he was
Missing
being,
something.
right, right. I mean, since they weren't in the house, I'm sure he experienced them sometimes, but even at his preschool, they were doing pretty healthy things. So, and they were doing gluten-free things. And so it wasn't, I didn't feel like it created any kind of stigma or separation for him, and doing it as a family was good for all of us for sure.
Yes. Yes, I can attest to that myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Much easier, yes. And it's just, yeah. So what so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, do you have one last tip you want to leave with our parents who are listening and who just feel like, okay, I've heard where to get started, I've heard where to get resources from. What do I like? Where can parents get sustaining power from? Because that's something, right? Life keeps throwing balls at us. How do we stay on track with this?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, reinforcement works on parents too. I mean, I would try. I know it's hard though. I remember people would give me the airplane mask thing, tell me to put the oxygen mask on myself first, and it just doesn't. When you're under that kind of stress, it's not actually helpful sometimes to hear that. I think that the more important thing is just trying to find something every day that went well. Even if went well doesn't mean that you hit a home run, just something that went well. That was something that I really tried to do. Really try to focus at that level. Like today this went well, and not to count all the things that didn't go well. Like which were frankly for the first many years usually that there wasn't a balance there, but I was always trying to think about that and then trying to appreciate the really caring people who turned up. And not everybody was caring, but when somebody got my kid, they really got my kid. And I really try, even now, years later, I haven't seen some of those people in probably 20 years, but I still remember them and reflect on how great it was that I saw my kid and they could see my kid. And that's a small thing, but it really, it gives you hope and heart about everything, I think.
Yes, yes. Hope and heart. I love it. There is hope, parents who are listening. There's hope. Always hope. And it helps our brains like feel like we can keep going when we focus on the good. the good. So that's your assignment, parents. Find one good thing every day that you can celebrate about your child, about yourself, about what's going on in your life, because it definitely helps get you up in the morning to continue living life like you should. So thank you so much, Miss Fulton, for
Yeah.
sharing. Truly
Hey,
appreciate
thanks for
it.
having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes. So tell parents listening again one last time where they can find information about ARI. What's the website, please? And we'll put it
Yes,
on.
it's completely free. Go to autism.org and you can click on webinars, you can click on continuing medical education. Anything that you find there is completely free. And we hope that you'll use it and share it. It's our honor to provide it.
Yes, yes. I've had the pleasure of doing a couple of webinars on your platform, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. So, parents, yes, there's loads and loads of amazing information on there that will be so helpful. And if for any reason you're waiting on a wait list and you haven't gotten the evaluation that your child needs, just reach out to us at Glow Pediatrics. Also, we provide nutritional, looking at the root causes of what's going on with your children in terms of GI distress, in terms of focusing, helping them with their sleep. If you're struggling with any of that with your children, please reach out to us at Go Pediatrics as well. So until next time, please share this with someone, a family that needs to hear this, and be well. And remember, look for the one thing every day that you can be grateful for. Thank you again, Denise, for coming on.
Okay.